because we've got some minutes, something that I was thinking about that might be useful to you. Because I was talking yesterday about my first experience as a creative director, and well, not the first, but my first experience as a creative director at Saatchi's, and the importance of a tight brief, or the power of a tight brief, or the freedom of a tight brief, as somebody said the other day. And how that was really helpful to me in what was a kind of trying circumstance. Something else that actually really, really helped me at exactly that same time was a technique that that same bullying client showed me. So what happened? So I said that, you know, we had to resign Volvo and all that sort of stuff. The client was a hostile client, hostile to us, and all of that. So the agency, the DFS agency we bought, had been 6 months on a brief, relaunched the new Camry, and they'd come up with nothing. And I inherited that. So not only did I have this horrible sort of situation, but you have all these mandatories and this terrible account. It was like, you know, the worst ads on Australian television, actually. So not only did I have all that, but I had this pressing thing of, they were like 2 months, 3 months away from the launch of a brand new vehicle. I didn't have an idea from the existing agency that we just bought, and now that was my responsibility. So I was going to get my ass kicked for it. So I went down to see the client because they couldn't even agree a brief. Can you imagine that? So, and after 6 months, they still didn't have a brief. So I went down to see the client, and I said to him, what's the problem? And he said, the problem is you don't understand the car business. And I said, I don't buy that, because, you know, I've just spent the last 3 years working on Volvo, and that's been seriously acclaimed work. And he said, Volvo. He said, Volvo is one product, one thing, stands for safety. He said, we have 35 different models. 35 models, and they range from a truck to a small car, even buses. And our problem is how to differentiate all those vehicles in the minds of the dealers, not the market, but in the minds of the dealers, so the dealers don't cannibalize the products. Right, so they don't switch sell and all that sort of stuff. How do you keep all these 35 models different in the minds of the dealers? I said, well, yeah, I said, that is a problem. He said, so how do you do it? He said, so we've got a word for each vehicle. Really? And he said, yeah. I said, you got a list of them? He said, sure. So he went away and he came back and he gave me a list. He gave me a list with one word for each vehicle. And I thought, holy cow, I can use this in marketing. This is incredible. What? Because he said, you know, your single-minded propositions don't work. We need to keep these things really simple. So now I had a list of one word for each vehicle. So I said, what's the word for Camry? He said, well, there's the problem. He said, because we haven't got the word for that. So I said, okay, so can I drive one? Can I take one back to the office? He said, sure. Well, up until that point, I'd only driven sports cars. I had really hot sports cars all my life. I got in this Camry thing to drive it back to the office. And I put my foot on the gas because I thought, this is going to be really sluggish. And before I knew it, I was halfway up the road and I thought, fuck me, get your foot off the accelerator. So I turned the car straight round, I went straight back. I went in, I said, I've got the word. He said, what is it? I said, it's fuck me. he said, you think you can work with that? I said, yeah. He said, okay. So we changed it actually to surprising. But that's why the that's by the chicken across the road because, and what happened, you know, the Camry came out and was surprised the chicken, as it really surprised Bob's performance. But this thing, this one word thing was brilliant because I had no idea how to handle this piece of business from the outset. Imagine having 35 different models from one brand. I had no idea how to handle it, or how to write the ads, or how to actually give it to a creative team and know when they've done something good. But now I had this list of words. I went through the thing and went, holy shit, okay, so Hilux, the truck, that's unbreakable. Okay, here's the brief. Go away and do the most amazing commercial you can possibly imagine with Unbreakable. You come back, show it to me. I go, either that is it or it isn't it. Can you push Unbreakable further than that? I go to the client and go, you know, this truck's unbreakable. That's the one word. We actually call this one word equities, and actually one word equities has now become a thing. People talk about it. It's been printed a lot. But it was invented. I can tell you that phrase, one word equity, was invented by us. But the idea, the concept of it was given to us by a bullying client in Australia, and I went on to make one word equities because the thing with Toyota is they are a global company, but they're local global. In other words, headquarters doesn't run anything. It's like Procter & Gamble headquarters runs everything worldwide, but Toyota is run independently worldwide. Okay, it comes under the Toyota brand.
That's the main problem that we face in Lebanon for Toyota. I work for Toyota.
Right.
So for a small market, it's always a hard issue to work.
So what I did, and had some success with for about 5 years with Toyota, was to institutionalize the one-word equity across the Toyota brand worldwide, so that every vehicle had the same equity. So you could do whatever you wanted to. You didn't have to do the same campaigns. You know, some countries had one campaign, another campaign, but the vehicles had the same equity. So the truck was unbreakable in every country, or Camry was surprising in every country. The problem, I can tell you, with one-word equities, because they are manna from heaven. If you can reduce them, you know, you had a one-word equity, man, slim. If you can reduce the thing to that one-word equity, you're going to get a really good, simple solution out of that somewhere. The problem with them is finding the equities, and it's really, really hard. It is like 90% of the creative task is getting to that equity, because once you got that, the rest just flows dead easy.
Is it always an objective, or can it be other stuff? It really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's just so long as you've got it in one word. So what happens is, you know, we found that the best way sometimes with Toyota to get to the one-word equity was to go to Japan and sit down with the chief engineer. Really difficult to do because the chief engineer of the vehicle is like a god in Japan. They are protected like you would not believe. You know this. You can never get to them. But sometimes if we had an important enough launch, we'd be able to go and sit down and talk to the chief engineer. And there you would know what the one-word equity is, because they knew what the gap in the market was that they were trying to solve. So I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of work that's come out of this thinking. But the problem with them is because it is so difficult to get to the one-word equity. It's painstaking. You know, it is laborious to try to think something down to what does it actually stand for inside the brand and for the consumer benefit. That the clients usually give up and they go, oh, this is too hard at some point. And what they'll say, the way this starts is they'll go, can we have 2 words? And you, by this time, will be kind of worn down yourself, and you'll go, okay. And they'll go, okay, here's the 2 words. Silent power. And now you've got a fucking dichotomy, and the problem is actually not, it's not like 2 words you have to deal with. They're 2 words that make no sense together. And your problem is more than twice as hard. You know? It's like 3 times as hard, and it's like, Yeah, and then after that, when the work is looking not so good, they'll walk away from it altogether. So we managed to do it for about 5 years, but it's just if it's a thing that you can do, it's worth doing because it is that key to simplicity. I'll just show you a couple of. I think I'm going to show you two. I show the girlfriend and the old man.
On. Okay. Okay, Mike, I know you think your truck is totally sick, but this is what I think of your precious 4x4 hang out all day with your stupid friend's truck! Push it!
Slow down! This is a neighborhood! Punk.
Interested. I do a lot of reading on military stuff and warriors and things. I just reread the Iliad again because the new translation out. It's really cool. But I've been reading a lot about. There's a great book out called The Heart and the Fist, which is about a guy who does. He's a very brilliant guy. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He's American, but does his masters in I think Oxford or Cambridge. But he goes out and he does humanitarian work in amazing places, you know, all the worst places that you can imagine. But as part of that, he decides he sees he's helping, you know, he works for Mother Teresa, etc. So as part of that, he sees that in some instances, the weak and the helpless need to be protected. So he decides to become a Navy SEAL. And then so there's part of that, the other half of the book is about the process to become a Navy SEAL, his deployment as a Navy SEAL, and then the coming together of the two things, the humanitarian thing and the fist. It's a great book. Anyway, read a lot of stuff like that, and so I've been reading a lot about Navy SEALs, and you've all kind of been, Navy SEALs have been used quite a lot with their sort of operations in different parts of the world. So if you had to work on Navy SEALs, if you had to do an ad for Navy SEALs, with all the stuff that you know about them, because their training is unbelievable. It's the toughest training course in the world, bar none. The missions that they do and all that. There's so much stuff around Navy SEALs. To do an add-on is, I think, be pretty hard. So I got to thinking about Navy SEALs, and I thought, what would the one-word equity for Navy SEALs be? And I think it's probably stealth, because they are all secret. They don't actually disclose identity. You would never know a Navy SEAL because they're just in the army. They don't wear badges that say they're Navy SEAls. They keep their identities hidden. They come in, they do subversive missions, and they get in, they get out quick. So stealth, I think, is probably the one-word equity. So just taking that, one of my students brought this ad in. You've probably seen it, but I think it's pretty cool. Can we just run it? one-word equity. Slim. So anyway, there's a little theme for you. I mean, I don't know if it's of any use to you, but it was very useful to me, helping manage a really big client and bring some kind of sense to it all. And
Or you can't actually find that
how do you start to find a word?
or how, what would you do if you can actually find it?
What do you do if you can't find it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Economic strategy.
Yeah, right. You panic when you're right near the deadline. Yeah. Do something else.
But there are brands that are tough to find their one word. Like in the Toyota range, the Corolla, for example. It's one of the toughest that we work on. You can't find that word.
Corolla, for a long time, the word we had for Corolla was reliable.
In Lebanon, we promote the whole Toyota series as reliable. So what's the unique thing? It's
Well, no,
sometimes
you
hard
see,
to
that was
find
the point. So the way we approached it globally was to say, okay, so Volkswagen's was reliable, Volvo was safe, and I forget there's a couple of others. But they Range Rover is rugged or outdoors or whatever that kind of equity. But all those products have one equity. So the opportunity with Toyota was to use the whole model range as fighting. So some of the vehicles in the Toyota range were fighting vehicles, fighting brands, if you like, against. So Corolla we used as reliable. So we only told a reliability story on Corolla. In fact, actually, do you want to I'll show you an ad on that. If you go to YouTube, there's an ad. So this was a Corolla ad, and it was done on reliability. Okay.
So what's the process that you undergo to find that one-word equity for a tough product, for example?
Like I said, we would work with the client to try to work out what that equity, what it stood for, what they, for Land Cruiser, we got to security, and that came from the client saying, that the thing with Land Cruiser was, it was for the Australian farmer that worked in the outback. This was the vehicle that they trusted more than anything else, because when you're driving out in the outback, if your vehicle breaks down, you are fucked. You can die. So what this vehicle represented was security. So that's the one-word equity we put around Land Cruiser, was security. Did you find it? Trapper?
No.
It's T-R-A-M-P-A.
No, I think it's double P, isn't it? T-R-A-P-P? Or trap? It's the trap.
Yeah, but that's not a word in Spanish.
It's a trap. Right?
Yeah, okay, that's it.
It's trampa in Spain.
It's Spanish word that would be trampa.
Trampa. We used to.
One.
Okay.
That's fun.
But yeah, so we'd use Tarago we used as safety, and that was a fighting brand against Volkswagen. But and actually we used mothering was the kind of one-word equity put on that, because it was safety, but it was about mums being able to take their kids to school.
So in the case of the fighting brands, it wasn't really a deal of being unique. It was being the same
generic,
as the category and
generic.
steal the share of
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But obviously trying to do the execution in a better way first.
Yeah, just make it memorable. And that's not so difficult when you've got one word to play with. You go, whoa, okay, just make this extreme in some way.
No, but often clients are like so proud of their brand that they would like associate them with every positive word they can find. So
I'll tell you what we did with Land Cruiser. we had to launch the new Land Cruiser because remember I said we were given Land Cruiser and the client said don't fuck it up. Here, we're going to give you Land Cruiser now, don't fuck it up. So it was the launch of a new vehicle, a whole new series. We had to go to Japan to see this thing, and it had like 35 gallons more in the fuel tank, and it had bigger wheel span, and it had and he wanted it all in. He wanted everything in. That was another mandatory. He wanted us to talk about the fuel tank, and the da-da-da. So what we did the first, what was it called? It's called a road block. We did the first road block that's ever been done on Australian television. And that is we bought every television channel, the whole break, at the same time on a Sunday night. Because all the television channels on the Sunday night, we had 4 channels at a time. They all ran movies. It's a big movie night. So we bought the break at the same time in every television channel. And we ran this 3-minute ad, which was based on a scene from Lawrence of Arabia, where Lawrence has gone back into the desert to find someone who's fallen off a camel. And there's a boy sitting on the edge of the desert, sitting on a camel waiting for him. And we shot it frame for frame, and we got permission to use the music. Lawrence music was huge, it was epic. So we did this epic thing, and then there's this scene where there's this shimmer in the desert where the boy has been asleep for like all day, and he's waiting, and there's a shimmer in the desert as Lawrence comes out of the desert with the rescued guy fallen off a camel, right? Famously. And instead of being on a camel, he's in the Land Cruiser, right? And there's this big music and all the crowd, all around the Land Cruiser, and the jump is he's thrown into the air, see, by like celebratory sort of thing. But what happens is as the car's coming out of the desert, it comes up like the credits of a movie. So the titles are coming up, and it's got 35-litre fuel tank. But it's all done like crew, lighting, and it's got the lighting of the car, and so it's done like everything is done like the thing of the car. So you take the kind of all the sort of mandatory shit you're given, and you think, how can I solve this problem and make it creative? They actually sold. They sold 6 months. They ran the ad in this one roadblock. They sold 6 months supply of the vehicle. So we're out of pocket because they didn't have to run the ad again. Yeah. Okay. So this is.
How do we look? How do we look? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Te volviste loco?
Era una trampa. ¿Una trampa? ¿Cuándo has visto un Toyota que se quede en la carretera?
How do we look?
It was a trap. You ever seen a Toyota broken down?
It's terrible. Yeah.
I heard that spot was the start for. I heard a lecture from this guy in Venezuela, from the guy who created this spot, and in Puerto Rico, and he said that this was the start for Toyota to start trusting their agency, and then they did a bunch of campaigns.
They did a lot of great campaigns.
And because Toyota in Puerto Rico was like the lowest sales cars, it was great because never broke down, and they found this insight, and then it became the #1 car, and now it's like.
Yeah. And the client's a huge fan of the agency. Yeah. That's true.
But they were scared because it's one of the first spots you'll see the brand, like you're showing your brand broken down, and it's the clients get scared.
Yeah. So See, Michael should be here any minute, I think. No? No, it's not. No?
He lost his way.
He's done his bit? Okay, good, alright. So don't wander off too far. Take a break.